Hello and welcome to the Royal Blue Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Croll, and today I'm joined by Echo Sports reporter Connor O'Neill. Recalled back to the side after a few podcasts off. Connor, how are things?
Yeah, I wouldn't say, just on the sidelines having a rest, I think is the best way to describe it, or another way, it's being off, I think, is the other way to describe it. But yeah, all good. It's looking forward to watching the Blues in action this weekend against Brighton.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those watching on YouTube, on Facebook, we're not live this time. We're not live today. We decided we'd just put a video out, little 25-minute podcast where we can discuss Sean Dyche's press conference, the points deduction situation, and the latest on the 777 takeover. Me and Connor are going to go through that today. Obviously, we've got Brighton at the weekend, like you said. Are you looking forward to it, Connor? I mean, not on the base of, the back of the Palace draw. Is Brighton a team that we could maybe get at with, a team that likes to control possession?
Well, you'd like to hope so, wouldn't you? I think obviously last season was probably the performance of the season at the Amex when Everton won 5-1 unexpectedly on that Bank holiday Monday, and a result that ultimately paved the way to ensure the Blues be playing in the Premier League this season. So you'd like to think that history could repeat itself. Obviously, we saw at Goodison back in November, how difficult a side Brighton are to play against. They kept the ball for long periods in that game, especially in the second half. But, up until the goal, didn't really hurt the Blues too much. I don't think it was only Jordan Pickford was forced into action too many times. And obviously in the end, the goal was a bit of a fluke equaliser, what we saw. So you would like to hope that the Blues could frustrate the Seagulls once again and, pick up what many will probably see as unexpected 3 points. But like we've seen with Everton, always expect the unexpected. But I think after Monday night as well, there's a few wrongs that need to be changed. I think Monday wasn't great in terms of the performance, and certainly first half it was lacking a lot of things. So there's no better time to put that right than on Saturday at the Amex.
Well, Sean Dyche was asked about Monday and the performance in his press conference. Connor, just before we get on that, just a reminder to everyone watching, please give us a like, give us a follow, give us a subscribe on our Royal Blue YouTube channel. Please show us some support. Get your questions in the comments section as well, and I'll try and react to them a little bit later on. But like I say, we're not live, so we'll just carry on as we go now. But Connor, yeah, obviously Sean Dyche's press conference today, he was kind of, his usual self, no major, massive talking points from the press conference, but he was asked about stats from the Palace game, and analysis showed that, it looked like it was a good performance. Do you agree with that?
No. I mean, the stats might have showed, a good performance, or suggested that, that was a good performance, but from what I see with my own eyes, it was far from a good performance. I think it was a very lethargic performance from Everton in which they lacked any creativity and any, real spark. I think ultimately, first half was one of the most boring halves of football I've ever watched. I couldn't stop yawning, if I'm being brutally honest with you, in the press box. It done nothing to, struggle to stay awake. It was that boring. I can probably understand Sean Dyche, the last 20 minutes they played with a bit of urgency, and, they did look to, put the ball in the box when they got the opportunity to. But, yeah, I don't think it was a great performance, and one that we'll look back on this season and say it was one of Everton's better ones. Although the stats might have suggested otherwise, I think we all know that ultimately, deep down, you probably know himself, Dyche, that was an opportunity missed in a game that they should have, was there for the taking, that they didn't quite take.
Well, our colleague Joe Thomas did ask that question, as discussed in a couple of previous pods of the past couple of days, and Dyche said that it was an opportunity missed. Is he trying to just save a bit of face there, really? Is he obviously...
I think he's been honest when he says it's an opportunity missed, because I think ultimately you've got to be honest, and it's Crystal Palace at home, they're struggling without a manager. Obviously, all the stuff that going on off the pitch with them in the build-up to the game. So you've got to be honest, say it was an opportunity missed, because, they're a side down there fighting relegation like Everton are. It's a home game. So, yeah, I think it was an opportunity missed, and I think Dyche would be stupid not to acknowledge it was an opportunity missed. And James Garner afterwards admitted it was an opportunity missed, and, a frustrating night for his side, because, they didn't get going, and, it was one that got away. And that seems to be the phrase that we're using quite a lot at the minute when we talk about Everton. It's a game that got away. There's been quite a few in recent weeks where, or certainly from, Christmas onwards, where games have just got away from Everton, which is something that they need to change fast, because they need to start putting points on the board.
I mean, he was,
apologies for anyone watching it, by the way, I've just looked at my phone, but every time it buzzes at the minute, you're never quite sure what it could be the outcome of obviously the appeal that we're all waiting for. So any buzz at the minute is being treated with, supreme urgency, just in case.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're waiting on tenterhooks.
We are, yeah.
To be honest,
we are.
Obviously, we will go into the points deduction appeal and the verdict and the non-verdict. That is.
Well, that's the thing. There's not much to add, is there, really, from where it was early on this week.
Not much to add, but we will speculate. We will question what's going on a little bit later in this podcast. But there probably was a couple of positives to take from the game. Connor, Amadou Onana came on, did well. I thought Dominic Calvert-Lewin did okay. Obviously didn't score again. Another goal, another game without a goal. But Dyche in his press conference today, he was questioned, or he was asked about the positive side of things, and Everton's defensive record. I know we conceded, but our defensive record actually does stand up to some of the best in the league. So we know where the problems are coming, and we know where the problems lie, and that is obviously going forward. And I wouldn't even necessarily say creating chances, because we are getting into some okay areas, maybe not enough. But where do you see this playing out? Because it's a frustrating time to be a Blue, and the style of play on Monday was not what Everton fans would expect. I know we're fighting, down at the bottom, when we have done for the past couple of years, and we're not expecting to be playing, top league style of football like that. But we want a bit of fight, we want a bit of effort, and we want to see a plan, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, I think, to be honest, though, the defensive sides of it, I don't mean this to disrespect, but I don't think there's any point in talking about that, because I think that's been there for a while now. The backbone of Pickford, Tarkowski, Branthwaite, Mykolenko. Yeah. Obviously, right back's been in a position where people come out, but apart from that, Pickford, Mykolenko, and Branthwaite, Tarkowski been stalwarts all season and built up a strong unit. So I don't mean to disrespect how good Everton have been defensively, but I don't think there's any need to highlight how good they've been defensively, if that makes sense, because we've all seen it with our own eyes for certainly half a season at least, how strong they've been. Well,
it becomes irrelevant, doesn't it, if you're not winning football matches?
Yeah, and obviously, ultimately, you can have the best, like you see at the minute, you can have the best defensive record in the Premier League, or one of the best defensive records, but it's not if you can't put the ball in the back of the other team's net. And obviously, at the minute, we can't put the ball in the back of the other team's net. Obviously, our forwards can't buy a goal. They're struggling in front of goal, probably lacking a little bit of confidence, if we're being honest, as well. And I just think at the minute, we're kind of in this world whereby ultimately, you Everton are defined by, attacking instincts and being creative. And the problem they've got right now is that they just don't look like they've got any creative spark. You can't. One thing for me on Monday night was you can't look at that Everton side and think how they. You look at it and think, how are they going to score a goal in open play? Because you don't see any kind of indication of a plan or, pattern of play in which they're going to cut the opposition open. We're a team that are very much relying on set pieces, which is, understandable, because we've got some big lads and we've got some very good set piece delivery takers, but that will only take you so far. And for me, the worry is that we just don't have that creative spark at the minute. We don't have that player to put the foot on the ball and dictate play or do things, or that type of player. And I think we're seeing that right now in the bluntest way possible, because we don't have a plan. I think that's a real worry, that we don't have a plan, an attacking plan. And with each passing minute, it just looks like we're going to struggle more and more in the final phase, and we are struggling at the minute. And Sean Dyche's got to come up with a plan very quickly, because, like we just said, if you can't score goals, you're not going to win any matches.
No, I mean, there's
especially as well, you're always suspect, aren't you, to concede a world like we did the other night against Palace. Ayew's goal was a bit of a bolt off the blue and come from nowhere, wasn't it? But that can happen in football. It's up to you to put the ball in the back of the opposition's net. So we don't look like doing that at the minute, and that's the worry, because you can only go up trying to keep clean sheets, and so long you can go scoring set pieces. Eventually, it's going to catch up. But yeah, and I think at the minute we're seeing that's caught up at Everton.
One thing that struck me from Sean Dyche's press conference this afternoon was he mentioned something about the forward players, the forward thinking players needing to get into the right areas. Is that not a worry for you, that he's kind of not necessarily having a dig or putting the blame on the players, we are creating a few chances, we just need to get them in the right areas? That's kind of what he suggested. But we know from his previous stint at Burnley that they relied heavily on set pieces. We're doing the exact same thing. Is this a managerial problem rather than a player problem?
I wouldn't say it's a managerial problem. I think It's just a case of Everton don't have the squad with the talent that you probably need in the Premier League to create goals and, do the utmost and, be creative and stuff like that.
But should it not come on? Obviously, we know Calvert-Lewin's, run goes on without a goal. We know he's done it in the past. If he's getting in the right, when he's getting in the right areas, obviously, I'm. When I say that, I'm referring to the stint that he had under Ancelotti. He had by far better players surrounding him. That goes without saying. But I personally think it's a massive concern when the managers coming out going, well, we're not getting the players in the right areas. I think that's on you, Sean, to be doing that. To be honest, that is down to you and the style of play and the tactics that you're implementing. I think we are supposedly down to the stats getting crosses into the box, but they're not like crosses down at the byline where you can whip it in and get Calvert-Lewin in the 6-yard box. So he's nowhere near any of these crosses that come in.
No, he's not, and I think that is the one thing that you could argue and say that's where he needs to change probably his game and be a bit more of a 6-yard box centre forward like he was under Carlo Ancelotti. But I think there's times in the night where you see the ball going into him and it's he's winning the flick on, but no one goes behind him, so he's basically chased his own flick on and stuff like that. There doesn't seem any cohesion, does there? I think that's the big thing. There doesn't seem any cohesion, attacking cohesion. I think, there's you see it where, Calvert-Lewin, McNeil might get the ball up wide and Calvert-Lewin make a run to the front post and it'll go over Calvert-Lewin's head and across at the back post, but there's no one there, and there's just that cohesion just doesn't seem to be quite there at the minute, does it? And I think ultimately we need to find a way in which that that cohesion comes, and that only works in the training ground and have patterns to play in some sort of forward line.
What's different? Sorry to worry. What's different? What are we doing different now compared to what we were doing when we had that 4-game run? Because the biggest thing that everyone was talking about over the past 2 months, where we haven't won a league game at home, was, well, we're missing Decore. That was our plan A. Now, okay, Decore's had 1 game back. He had a poor performance. You could say that he fluffed his lines, he was terrible, or he's just working his way back in. We had the hamstring injury, it was bad. But what are we? Is it less energy? Is it the cohesion, patterns of play? What are we doing that is not working at this moment in time compared to what we were doing when we were winning?
I think we just lost momentum, haven't we? I think Decore going out the team was a big one because I think that we lost momentum with that.
The Onana penalty.
Which,
I'm always going to bring that up.
But I just think that Decore going out the team, we lost that momentum. Obviously, Sean Dyche trialled and trialled a lot of different people playing in the 10 position. Nothing really ever come back. So I just think we lost momentum, and I think momentum's everything in football, isn't it? If you get on a good run with momentum, like we saw where we had that winning run, everything falls into place and everything seems to go your way. Yeah. If you go on the road to where you start to struggle, it becomes that little bit tougher. But yeah, I just think we've lost momentum, but I think there's no reason why they can't get it back and start to climb the table. And I think Calvert-Lewin now is in that position where he needs a goal, and once he gets a goal, you would hope that he'll get that little bit of ruthlessness back in front of goal when he presents with the opportunity. It's confidence as well, isn't it? I think confidence is a big thing in football, and Everton obviously a team that have been lacking confidence for large parts now over the last few years, and Calvert-Lewin is obviously one of the people who has lacked confidence because he hasn't been able to play as much. So I just think ultimately, when you look at the bigger picture, it's confidence, it's momentum. And like I say, Decore being out was probably a lot bigger. Well, it was a bigger blow than what everyone imagines it was going to be, because Everton seems to lose all that little bit of attacking nous once he was out the team, and we didn't really have a ready-made replacement to come in and do what he was doing. So I just think it's been confidence, momentum, but it's one of them. You hope that things will get back to normal and things will improve moving forward. With Decore now back in, Calvert-Lewin back in, the team will settle down again and everything will start to come back into place.
I mean, the pressure obviously builds each passing game without a win, but the pressure obviously builds on Calvert-Lewin each passing game without a goal. But I just thought he played well on Monday, not really getting too much assistance and too much help. He had that chance, didn't he, with the header with McNeil. Is it confidence, or is he just not very good? As in, I think he's a good player. I just don't. Is he a natural forward, like, goal scorer?
I think he's one of them, isn't he, Calvert-Lewin? I think he is a natural goal scorer. I just think he struggles at the minute to get a goal, and I think he's one of them forwards when he's on a run and he's scoring goals, he's great, but when he can't score, he comes into criticism. I think you look at someone like Rooney, for instance. He wasn't probably a natural goal scorer. As in, maybe he wasn't a natural number 9 goal scorer. But if he'd had barren runs in front of goal, he could probably assist, he could make goals, he could drop in the 10. he could do other things to his game. I think Calvert-Lewin can hold the ball up and is very good with his back to goal. But one of the big assets to him is he can score goals. He's not scoring goals. The minute everyone starts criticising the whole of his build-up play and, everything else that comes with him. So I just think, he's one of them centre-forwards who needs to score goals to kind of justify everything else that he does, if that makes sense, you know what I mean? I think of his back to goal and his hold-up play. And obviously, I think as well, doesn't help, does it, when you look at the opposition Everton have played in recent weeks as well. They played some good teams. And naturally, when you play good teams, it can be hard to score. You think of, City, for instance, away. He fed up scraps for large parts of that, didn't he? It was a constant battle because Everton were pinned back in their own half for large periods. Tottenham the week before, he probably does score, if we're being honest, when Harrison one goes in, but obviously gets but then again, there was times in that game where he was up against it, against Van der Ven, who I thought was really good. There was times where Everton couldn't really get up the pitch to support him and help him and, close them gaps between the back four, the midfield and stuff like that. So I just think it's been tough in the sense of like how things have worked out and how things have gone. And like anything is that, when you start going on that road and you miss, it's 1 game, 2 games, 3 games, and all of a sudden it adds up and adds up and adds up. And then there's a few things that don't go away. I think the goal against Tottenham probably should have been given. Isn't given. The goal against Tottenham again, which probably was his, but didn't get given his. Everything starts to pile up, and I think it just becomes a lot tougher to justify and defend Calvert-Lewin. But I think you've got to look at the other side of the games that he does do in terms of holding the ball up, playing well as back to goal, but they only become evident when you're scoring goals and everyone starts looking at your overall performance. The way Calvert-Lewin is as a number 9 centre forward, it's all scoring goals.
Injuries then and fitness, Dyche, there wasn't really much to say, to be honest. The only standout was that Mykolenko picked up maybe a bit of a knock, but he should be fit. Decore's no reaction, should be fine for Brighton. So, obviously Brighton coming up on Saturday, it would be nice to see Decore, back fully fit. He's had a, obviously didn't do the full 90, but he's had a good run out. Another week's training without any reaction. It would be, it's got to be a plus to see Decore and Calvert-Lewin, That's
what I'm saying before, in the sense of just that little bit of like things starting coming back in together, things becoming more aligned to what they were like before Christmas, before obviously before Decore picked up that injury against Burnley on December 16th. Obviously Mykolenko would be a blow if he was to miss the game, but obviously Dyche did seem quite hopeful to think that he was going to be available. I think, he just described it as knocked in. He actually said he's hopeful that he'll make an appearance, and the rest of the injury news is stuff that we already knew, and the absentees long-term absentees who we expect to be on the sidelines for a few more weeks. So from that point of view, it was very promising. And like you say, he's up to that bit more training, a bit more work on the training grounds. We'll start to see a different Everton and a more improved Everton.
Do you think Brighton are a bit better suited for us? I think I mentioned earlier on that they're the ones who are going to want to control the ball, pass the ball around. It'll enable us to sit back a little bit and
possibly, but you don't know, do you? Because you think of Goodison a few years ago, last January when they come and they won 4-1, they played Everton off the park, because they kept the ball and Everton just chased shadows, didn't they? So I always think with Brighton, it's like there's two ways to look at it, isn't it? There's the 4-1 home defeat and the 5-1 away win, where you think the 4-1 home defeat was where you play a team who likes keeping possession and moving the ball, and they can just take it to shreds because they tire you out and they find pockets of space and they punish you, versus the 5-1 game where you can let them off the ball and you take it off them and go, you basically break and try and score. So I don't, it's a hard one it's a hard question to answer that, because we've seen on both hands where you can be played off the park by thinking, let them off the ball and we'll, or you can, take it off them and you might get a bit of luck. So I think no matter what, it's going to be a tough game. These are good sides, got some very good players, and, it's another challenge that they've got to rise to. More than the question of, are they good team to play us? Ultimately, we don't know, do we? Because like I say, we saw last January that you can let them off the ball and they'll just absolutely play off the park. And I know people say, well, obviously that was a difficult moment and you'd like to see them more improved, but they kept the ball well that night and got in behind and got caught us out. We caught them out at the Amex, so it's and obviously this year I think it was a bit like that, wasn't it? The first half, I think Everton played quite well. Second half, Brighton has a lot of the ball. They didn't manage to get in behind Everton as much as what they did when they come in January the previous time. They still dominated possession and made Everton work hard. And, that day Calvert-Lewin again was feeding off scraps, wasn't he, certainly in the second half, because Everton couldn't get out, couldn't get the pitch and couldn't get the ball at Brighton.
You're probably right, because I thought Crystal Palace were the ideal team for Everton to play on Monday.
Dreadful, wasn't it?
It was absolutely abysmal. Okay, well, we'll come on to the points deduction. Like I say, there's no major update, but we will speculate. We'll talk about it a little bit. And Sean Dyche was asked about the points deduction in his press conference. It was actually the first question, considering we've got a game on Saturday.
I thought people care about, though, isn't it?
The thing that struck me, well, first of all, he was asked about it, and he says he hasn't got a clue. And then he said, the guidelines suggest the end of the month. So what's changed, or has anything changed? Because it's been our understanding, pretty much everyone's understanding, as far as I know, that it was mid-February that, a decision and a verdict was due. Is this a narrative Everton have been feeding, that it was mid-February?
No one really, to be fair, no one really knows. I don't think
it's a mess, though, isn't it?
Yeah, and the argument would be that, well, these things take time and they've got to be done properly and stuff like that. You can't rush them. So I don't think that, there was never a definitive date when this was going to be released, I think is the thing to start with.
But the Premier League and obviously the Commission, I don't think they've actually come out and said.
I think there was a hope it would be done by
but like I say,
the end of February.
I think it was
I don't think there was ever really. It was just a hope more than anything. And obviously, but ultimately, like anything, when it's legal, it takes as long as it takes. You know what I mean? It's just, because it's illegal. Obviously, a major legal issue, isn't it? It's being in a court for appeal, etc. So, it takes as long as it takes.
What's your consensus that no news is good news, or?
I honestly couldn't tell you. I think it's just too hard to predict because of what we've seen so far.
Does the delay feed into a benefit for Everton?
I mean, we are speculating here, aren't
we?
You know what I mean?
That's what we're here for.
Clutching straws, as they say, thinking of the positives. But no,
adding to the conspiracy theories.
I don't know. I just think it'll come when it'll come now. You know what I mean? That's and just expect it any day now. I think is the best way to describe when to expect it. But like I say, I do think there is large parts of this where you are dealing with a legal process, and sometimes they can take longer than what is planned. It's like selling your house, isn't it? And you can aim to sell your house by the end of the month, but it might take longer because there's things holding up, or there's things to iron out, or I's to dot and I's to dot and T's to cross, etc. So that could just be the case with this, really. I think there was a hope it would be. Well, the hope is it would be done by February, because the sooner the better, really, because obviously the impact it has on the Premier League as a whole, not just Everton. But yeah, I think any day now, I think, is the best way to describe when it could happen. And I honestly don't think we can call this either way. I just don't think we can call it either way. It could go anyway.
I mean, this is me speculating, but the longer it goes on, I think the better the decision is going to be for Everton.
Hopefully. I mean, you just don't know, though, do you? I mean, I don't think anyone thought they get deducted 10 points first time round, did they? So, again, expect the unexpected, I think, is the best way to describe it.
The impact this is having, not just on Everton, on other teams, and Dyche was asked about this, again, in his press conference. Is this topic, the points deduction, a subject of daily conversation within the dressing room? He said no. Like, obviously, don't think the players would, discuss it every single day, obviously, like we do. But, the impact is just, it's so overbearing that it's just having this impact on Luton. Like, Luton don't know where they stand. Forest don't know where they stand. We obviously don't know where we stand. We could be literally out and flying of the relegation zone. I know we're out of the relegation zone. We could be out of the relegation fight if we get these full 10 points back. And then it's kind of like, well, really, we would only need another, 6-7 points to survive. And then you'd fully expect that to get them in the home games that we've got left. Home form is absolutely shocking, but, we can only hope. I just think it's turned into a circus. It's turned into a mess. I'm not particularly blaming anyone, but a decision needs to be, forthcoming as soon as possible, just so teams can just get on. But then we all know that the Forest one is probably going to rumble on as well, and that's not going to help the situation. So it is not going to end.
I think you've got to be braced now for when it comes, and that's all you can do. To be honest with you, I think you are right, though it is a mess. But the other argument would be, well, Everton should find themselves in this position in the first place, and it's their own fault that they're there. So, there is that argument as well around, what has gone on. But yeah, it's a mess. It's not great, and the sooner we get clarity and an outcome, the better, I think, for everyone.
Just touching a little bit then on the 7-7 takeover, Connor. Obviously, club in limbo again.
I was going to say, we'll just repeat what we just said in that section to this section, couldn't we? Because it's basically the same, isn't it? That this whole process is exactly the same. No one really knows. No one really knows what's going on. And, ultimately, Sean Dyche said today, he didn't really have an update. I wouldn't expect him to have an update because you would expect that this is playing out much higher than his remit, and the people involved are much higher figures at the football club than he is. So, yeah, I mean, this one again is a bit of a mess, isn't it? And, again, all we can do with this is speculate, but even with that, it's hard to speculate because we don't know what is going on. We don't know the ins and the outs.
Just on that, our colleague Dave Parr wrote a piece. It wasn't really an update on the takeover, but he made some good points which you can read on the Liverpool Echo website. But just a line from there, and it's just really going to ask your understanding of it. Mercedes understood to have come back in the fold more prominently behind the scenes in recent weeks. Is that something that you're aware of, or what's your understanding of that? Because we all know that he's not willing to commit any more money to the club. But
it's still his asset. I think the big thing with that is it's still his asset, isn't it? It's still his football club. He still owns 94.1% of that football club. Obviously, the big thing as well is obviously, the Chairman Bill Kenwright unfortunately passed away late last year. Everton still only have an interim chief executive in Colin Chong, an interim chief financial officer, because of the board members who resigned during the summer. They weren't replaced because of the takeover situation and stuff like that. So I think there's no surprise to see Farhad Moshiri take more prominent roles. At the end of the day, it's still his football club. He's still got an interest in it. Yes, he wants to sell up, and yes, he wants to leave, but as things stand, it's currently still his asset and his football club. And like anyone, an asset, they would want to protect that asset, make sure things are being done properly and things are being run properly. And there's no better way to do that than putting yourself on the ground and taking an active interest in what is going on. So I think that's why he's ultimately taken an approach like he has, and come back into the fold. And it's understandable why, and you can see why, because like I say, it's his asset. It's still his asset until 777 get that Premier League approval and all the paperwork signed, they become the new owners of Everton Football Club. It's still Farhad Moshiri who owns 94.1%. So yeah, people might be surprised by Moshiri coming back into it, but I think it's ultimately just a business decision to make sure to look after his asset and preserve his asset.
Okay, well, we're going to finish off, but before we do...
apologies there to listeners, because I don't think we've provided much of an update on the two major talking points, but
this is
that is all we literally have got at the minute. I think everyone is in as much in the dark as we are in terms of what is going on and when we're going to find out things.
Well, that's the thing. What I would say is this is obviously an unprecedented situation, so it doesn't happen a lot, but even on big footballing news stories, there's always a whisper of something in the press, or obviously even on social media, and you kind of have an idea of where things are going. There's just absolutely there's nothing to suggest what the decision is going to be. So we will, before we love you and leave you and finish little 30-minute pod, I'm just going to ask Connor his predictions for Brighton. I will give my predictions. The lads are also going to do a podcast tomorrow, so they'll go in depth into the Brighton game and preview that and give their predictions, I'm sure. So, Connor, prediction for Brighton on Saturday?
2-1 Everton.
Wow.
Get back to winning ways. Dominic Calvert-Lewin back on the score sheet. Another win at the Amex. Finish on that ultimate high.
I should have gone first, shouldn't I? I should have gone with my prediction.
Finish on that ultimate high.
I'm going to go 1-1. I still think that's still
a good result. That good points.
But it means that if we do draw and get the points, then it's got to be a win against West Ham.
Yeah, but I think it's got to be West Ham anyway, either way. But yeah, I do agree with that,
because we know what's coming up next with some of the matches, the big games that we've got. So yeah, we'll love you, leave you. We'll finish the pod there. That's all for today's show. Please remember to like, subscribe, follow the Echoes Everton FC Facebook page and the Echoes Royal Blue YouTube channel. Thank you for your support. Please keep joining in on the lives that we're doing and the normal videos that we do. Like I say, the support is much appreciated. I've been Ian Croll, and I've been joined by Connor O'Neill, and this has been the Royal Blue Podcast.